What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And on this episode of Texas AuthorCon and Book Festival author interviews, we have with us E Nigma. Welcome to the show, or welcome back, rather.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it last year, and I can't wait to see what this year brings.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And I know I missed your interview last year, but I did go over and introduce myself at TAC. So it's nice to actually get a chance to chit chat with you. I was hoping I wouldn't have to miss this interview as well.
It's nice to meet you on when we met last year, and I'm hoping we can go ahead and get some things going this year too.
Oh yeah, for sure. So tell us, what is your favorite, or who is your favorite Universal monster?
So Universal monsters. There's so many of them. So just to kind of give you a heads up, I know I told this to Eric last time. I'm not the biggest horror type person or the horror fan, but as far as a Universal monster, I mean, I would probably, not necessarily like vampires, I guess, would probably be like, I don't know if it's like a specific one, like Dracula or anything like
Yeah,
that.
Universal was specifically Dracula, Frankenstein,
Yeah.
and Wolfman.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, out of those, I've like more of the parodies and things like that
Okay,
as
yeah.
opposed to like the actual ones. If you wanted to pick like somebody that's a parody, like, we talk about Dracula and things like that. I don't know if you remember this, and this is just so corny, and this really shows my age too. But there was this cartoon that used to come on Nickelodeon
Count
called,
Duckula.
yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah. No, I didn't throw it out there, so I knew what you're talking about. Yeah, that's great.
So, Universal monster parody,
Mhm.
Count Duckula, he doesn't, do the blood thing. That would probably be really like my favorite one. But yeah, it would fall into the vampire category though, most definitely.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
We watched Dracula Dead and Loving It with
Yes.
Leslie
Leslie
Nielsen.
Nielsen. Yes. I
Give
love
him
that
an
movie
enema.
too.
I actually think that might have been our favorite too. We watched 5 different Dracula movies to try and compare it to the book, and I think we ended up enjoying the spoof more than any of the ones that are trying to be serious with it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you spoof something, for some reason it just brings that, that seriousness. It just kind of gives you that little natural. I don't know, there's just something about it. I like the spoofs a lot better than the actual lore, in my opinion.
and what was funny is it was actually more true to the book than
Yeah.
most of the movies we watched. The spoof was actually way closer. So
hmm
Mhm.
Yeah, which I couldn't believe. Of like, how is a comedy like of Dracula closer to the actual book of Dracula than
Mhm.
like serious movies? Because
Right.
even the Universal Dracula wasn't
yeah,
close to it, which is
yeah, it
Well,
was
funny.
really odd.
yeah, I'm about to say, well, really, what you need to do though to find that comedic tone is you got to start with the serious nature and just kind of
Mhm.
pick it apart and make it to comedic tone. So I could see how a spoof could actually be closer to reality than the actual, or closer to the book than the actual movie based on it. Because every director or what have you wants to put their little thing in it. It ends up taking different creative freedoms, and
Yeah,
sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So tell us, what is your favorite cryptid or monster?
Ah, so this is the one we're talking about, like the
Bigfoot.
like
Loch
Bigfoot,
Ness.
Loch Ness
Yeah.
monster. I always found the Loch Ness monster kind of intriguing,
Mhm.
only because it's what is it really? I know there's always the lore behind it, like Bigfoot. It's a man who's hairy. Or a monster that's hairy, or whatever you want to call it. And I guess they try to like a caveman. There's different variations of it. The Loch
Mhm.
Ness monster, though, is just kind of one of those things. Like, do we have a Godzilla-like type thing that's living on this earth that people are actually seeing? That I don't know. It's just like it's always intriguing. The Loch Ness monster always was more intriguing to me than say like a Bigfoot, because I'm like, Bigfoot. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be an animal. It could be ape. It could be whatever people are seeing. it could be really explained. The Loch Ness Monster, though, that's something you really can't explain unless we have some sort of real deep water Godzilla out there.
Yeah, is it a kaiju or is it just a dinosaur that has survived? Like, you don't know.
Yeah. I always used to, as a kid, I always used to think it was a dinosaur. I said it's a dinosaur. That you couldn't tell
Yeah.
me anything different. It's a dinosaur because at least we know they, roam the earth or suspect or whatever based off science. But at least that brings some sort of reality to the situation as far as something that's just made up or in a certain realm. So
the guy that wrote Meg, the giant shark, and they did the movie with Jason Statham. He wrote a Loch Ness monster book called The Loch. I think his name's Steve Altman or Alton, something like that. And it's really interesting, and he puts a nice twist on it. And so I would suggest everybody run out and read The Loch because I think it's a pretty fun read. So
yeah, I read a Loch Ness book, and it actually turned out to be like a hoax. The book that I read, but it was still like you're still, oh, is this real? Is there really this monster? Is it what's killing people or animals? But the author took a spin on it and made it so it was actually a hoax. Like some people say Loch Ness is a hoax, and it's just to get tourists and stuff.
Yeah, just
right,
to throw
right,
this
right.
out, Scooby-Doo also has a feature-length film about the Loch Ness Monster, and it's really good too, if you like that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, Scooby-Doo. So tell us, zombies. Do you like them fast or do you like them slow?
I prefer the fast zombies because I think that just adds on to the tension. Slow zombies. Yeah, the thing about slow zombies is there's always a lot of them. And so they can hoard you. You really have to kind of make your way around. But it's something that same horde running after you at fast pace. I think that brings a little more tension to the story because now not only do you have these mindless beasts trying to attack you, but you also have to evade them. And I'm a bigger person, so I maybe about a few minutes of running, then I'm kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and let's fight this out because
Yep.
I can't make it. Whereas you have the slower ones, hey, I may be able to kind of juke a couple of them and get out of there. But
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't want any cardio.
Just gonna put some barbecue sauce on and just let them have at it.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because, like we talked about in one of my books when we had the last interview, the Life Within, which is at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. There is a point in time where the character is just like, you know what, I'm just going to take as many of them as I can with me. It's like you're accepting your fate because there's no escape. So I just got to do what I have to do at that point.
Yep. So I have the cover for that. It's very striking cover. On that, I'm definitely gonna have to check that one out because I've just recently gotten into reading zombie books, and so it's kind of like I can't get enough now. I'm always looking for zombie books, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of zombie.
There's like there's a few people that focus and all they do is zombie, but it's not a ton. You would
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's kind of just with The Walking Dead and their 102nd season. I think that kind of killed a lot of lore for it because The Walking Dead has its whole thing. And I'm gonna be honest with you too. I have never seen one episode of The Walking Dead, so for them to have so many seasons and spinoffs and everything that goes with it, it's just people may be burnt out.
Yeah, I've seen I think 2 episodes of the first season of Walking Dead, and that's it.
Y'all missing out. It's good till I think 4. I think 4 is when it started to kind of get a little. 4 or 5 is when it kind of got a little bloated. But season 2 is one of the best seasons of TV I've ever seen.
So, and since we got your covers up, Virtual Insanity is one of your books. I actually just recently read this. I think last week I finished it. It was really great. I loved it, but I am so mad at you for that ending. Spoiler alert, people. Because I was like, way to go, Jeremiah. You are turning yourself around. Good for you. And then the last chapter, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like,
So
no.
so the funny thing about that is a lot of my books tend to, I don't give the fairy tale ending. Sometimes I'll give you a bittersweet ending, but it's never one of those endings that, that's very rare in my books. Matter of fact, I just finished another book that's coming out on June the 8th. And there was a part in there where I kind of, just like you said, changed that ending to where everything's going fine and all of a sudden lit down. So this time I took that part out. So I'm going to leave the happiness in it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, this book here, it was just one of those things that I'm a grower when it comes to writing. So I kind of start writing, not even 100% sure knowing where I'm going. This particular book I did. Like, I knew this was what the ending was going to be. It was just, how do I get this character there? I mean, it was just one of those things. And when I was thinking of this book, it was kind of like the Whitney Houston Bodyguard movie. Is what I was really in the back of my
Yeah.
head going through that. But then I wanted to add some virtualness to it, and that, I think the concept worked well. And I know the ending. Yeah, she was, well. Yeah, I guess we're talking spoilers. Yeah, she got out, and everything was starting. And then what the tie into this book is, she's actually a character in one of my other books where that it was kind of mentioned in that final portion of the
Yeah.
book. So
Yeah.
that's, and I really haven't uh, developed that character to this character yet. So I always said I'm gonna write another one for that character to kind of see both of these characters go hand in hand. But yeah, it's one of those endings, just like The Life Within, that
Yeah.
everybody will read it and they'll say, I enjoyed it, but I hate you for the ending. I'm like,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No, I loved the ending. I was just like, oh no. And it's funny you said that there was kind of like you were thinking bodyguard kind of thing, because I did get those vibes a little bit, because I was totally waiting for Jemiah and Rex to hook up, because you
Mm-hmm,
could see
mm-hmm,
how close that those two characters were, you know.
mm-hmm.
Um, but
But
yeah,
yeah,
I
it was just something something a little different.
oh
It's
yeah.
just one of those stories that just kind of just jumped in my head, and I just wanted to kind of just get that character to that ending. So it was trying, like, I really wanted to go for like a twist ending or just an ending that just kind of shocks people, and that's kind of where I went to with it.
Yeah. And the Life Within, is that like your only horror book that you've written?
Yes, and I don't necessarily consider horror, because let me explain this. What you guys do with horror is fascinating. I cannot write like that. I cannot write horror. I know Merrill, who was over the Author Con, he wanted me to do some sort of book with them. Just kind of put an anthology
Mhm.
together, doing some sort of horror thing. And I told him I cannot do. I tried. I just I cannot write horror. It's just one of those things that I just can't get into. So The Life Within, it's not, I guess you would call it my best attempt to write a horror, but it's not actually a horror. So what this book is, it's starting like around 3 weeks after the whole zombie apocalypse thing. So basically, people are still in the dark. They don't know what's going on. They just have guesses of what's going on or theories. And in the book, I'll go ahead and throw a spoiler out for that too. It's never revealed where the zombies came from or what caused it or anything like that. And I wanted to leave it like that because, again, we're still in the early stages. And I wanted to write a love story. And I said, what's the best way to write a love story? How about put it in the middle of a zombie apocalypse? And
Mm.
so you've seen the early stages of the zombies. You've seen the humanity trying to get together, because this is really only taking part in one part of the country. It hasn't even made it over to the East Coast yet. So this is kind of just moving east for the most part. And so that's what this particular story is about. And the zombies in here, they're a little different than your traditional zombies, because they do have certain aspects around, like some of them can actually climb up walls and climb up buildings, like in fast, pace speed
Mhm.
and things like that. And so you get to see the town. I never name what the town is, but you can clearly figure out it's Dallas. But you get to see the town as it crumbles. You get to see humanity. You can see all the things that's going on. And so this was probably my closest attempt to horror, and it fell in a love story. So there you go.
Nice. Yeah, well, it sounds interesting to me. I definitely want to check that out. And I got to read more about Jeremiah / Michelle, because I'm totally hooked on that character now.
Yeah, so and it was just one of those things that it just when the reveal came out, it was just like, wait a minute. And she was so deep into it that she still thought that she could sing, and when she tried to sing like the character, the virtual character, it came out horribly. So it was just, that shows you how much this messed with her mind.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a unique concept. I don't think I've read anything quite like that before, so I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you could pick any one of your books to become a movie, which one would you choose?
Oh, man. So just, I have 29 books.
Oh, wow.
I'm about to finish my 30th. I'm hoping to get that one done before AuthorCon. So it's kind of hard to pick. But if I had to pick one, I talked about this one on the last interview, and this is now my bestseller, and it's called Between Wives.
Okay.
And the concept behind this, I think, is which people really like about it is it's not what you think. Everybody thinks that this is a book about an affair, and it's far from that. And essentially what it is just a police officer. He's working a case. He's on a drug case. He has a shootout, and he enters the drug house that he was just battling the bad guys in. He walks in. There's nothing there. He walks out. It's 10 years later. His wife and kids don't exist, and he's married to somebody else. And so throughout the book, you're basically in the rabbit hole following him, trying to figure out what's going on. Everybody who I know who's read this, and even people I don't know, will reach out to me like in the midst of reading the book and say, what's happening? My wife did it. She kept texting me like every chapter, what's really going on? I said, just keep reading. Just keep reading. Just keep reading. And everybody, this has now been my bestseller. And I showed it on the last interview we had, and that was, when it was just, really hadn't taken off yet. But now that is my bestseller book. And every time I go to any event, I always have to make sure I have a lot of copies on it. And just that everybody's intrigued by this, just a psychological thriller. And if I see this should be made into a movie if I had to pick one.
Yeah, it sounds like it would make an awesome movie.
Yeah, it sounded like it was great last year hearing about it. So I'm glad to hear that it's doing well, because it's one of those ideas that people should be checking out.
Yeah, save me a copy. Don't sell out. Save me a copy.
I got you.
Eric, you're going to need to mail me back a whole box of his books.
Okay.
I will have them available, trust me.
So are you into science fiction or fantasy?
I am. And matter of fact, my next book that I just finished, and I'm kind of going through the edits, it's a fantasy book. So for me, the writing process is I will write a book and figure out what genre it's in later. Like I just tell the story. I'm not saying I'm going out to write a fantasy book. And then after I finished writing it, after the first draft was done, I started to look it up. Where can I put this? And I said, it's a fantasy book. Oh, I made a fantasy book. Like I didn't really know what I had. So, but yeah, that's going to be my first fantasy book. And then my sci-fi series, I talked about it on the last interview as well. I only had 2 books at that time, and I finished the 3rd book like I had discussed and kind of closed out the series. Maybe left a possibility for a 4th book. But yeah, sci-fi, I had a real good response last year at the AuthorCon with my sci-fi books, because I didn't really know that there was a big market for my sci-fi books until then. And so I did a great deal of sales just with my sci-fi book. And as I've gone to different events, I see that there's a big market for it. So I was very ecstatic, because sci-fi is just my passion.
Nice. So what's your favorite sci-fi franchise? And why is it Star Wars?
I know it's kind of hard to say Star Wars. Well, I will say Star Wars only for this reason. Not necessarily, the originals were classics. The prequels are starting to get their due now. The sequels, but I think the content, like Ahsoka Tano, she's my favorite character. She wasn't even in any of the original Star Wars. I think it's all that supplemental things, the animations and things like that. That's why I think makes Star Wars the best, because you just has this lore that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you've created an entire universe that if somebody said, I've never watched Star Wars or any content of Star Wars, where do I start? It's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just so much to really take in. The animation, Rebels, Clone Wars. Then you have the shows like Ahsoka, Mandalorian, all of these things in this big universe. Star Wars is just, that's what sparked it. I mean, I remember watching Star Wars on VHS way back when with my dad. You know, it was so funny because I used to tell him all the time. Now, this is before the prequels. I said, it says Star Wars Episode 4. So there's more before that. He used to always fuss at me, well, show me the other three then. Well, I don't know where they are. I just said, it says Episode 4.
Yeah, and there's so many books too. So many Star Wars books out there.
I was gonna say the stuff Marvel's doing with the comics. I say it every time Star Wars is brought up. That's what people need to be checking out. The Darth Vader stuff's amazing, and they have series for a lot of the secondary characters too that you don't get a lot in the TV shows and stuff. They have their own series, and you get a lot of backstory. So Darth Vader stuff's amazing that Marvel puts out.
Yeah, I've seen some of those comics. Just read kind of little bits and pieces of them, and it looks amazing. It's just, it keeps, bringing more, because before, when we had the first three original, Darth Vader was what he was, but you start to see that background and all of this character development, especially the Clone Wars animated series. You get to see Anakin Skywalker and why he was so respected by Obi-Wan and all that. And it was just to really build a character, and they have just gone back and forth just to kind of build this character to when I'm watching the original Star Wars now, I actually catch myself saying Anakin. That's Anakin Skywalker. Before it was Darth Vader. Now that you see the character behind that, I think that's what makes Star Wars just the greatest.
Nice. Now, what about fantasy? Do you watch or read a lot of fantasy?
Not particularly. Fantasy is one of those genres that, like, if I catch something that'll catch my eye, or something that'll just kind of intrigue me a bit, I may check it out a little bit. But it's not anything that I go seeking out as far as something to watch, because I'm a big movie buff, as I've said before. Movies, TV shows, and things like that. And a lot of my interest will generate from that. Like when Game of Thrones came out, I wasn't looking for Game of Thrones, but once I started watching it, then I started looking at the books, and then I started getting mad because I wanted to see the Red Wedding, as not have seen it, but I ended up reading about it, and I was mad. I wanted to be shocked like everybody else. And then I was watching House of the Dragon, and I was, I said, this time I'm not reading the books. I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit here and be excited. But then I was watching Game of Thrones, and then Joffrey ruined it. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Names I wasn't paying attention to before, and Joffrey mentioned something, and I was just mad because I was like, this was the time I was actually going to not read the book. I want to be surprised like everybody else. And then once it's over, then I'm going to go back and read the book. But I already got spoiled, so.
Yeah, I think I watched like maybe 3 episodes of the first season of Game of Thrones, and this was like a couple of seasons in when I got convinced to watch it. And I got so mad because I'm like, everybody's freaking dying. Like, everybody's getting killed. Like, I can't handle this. It's too much anxiety for me,
So I will say, so when it first dropped, there was a show on Stars called Camelot. And I had just finished watching Spartacus, and I wanted to have some sort of replacement for that, because I was, Spartacus was just such a great show on Stars. And so I was watching Camelot and Game of Thrones season 1. They both came out at the same time. And I said, this Camelot show is great. It's going to be on. I can't wait to see multiple seasons. I said, Game of Thrones is kind of boring. I don't think it's going to last long. Well, the opposite happened. Game of Thrones went on to become one of the staples of TV, and Camelot was canceled after 1 season. So,
yeah.
Yeah, but they had, what was it, Eva Green as Morgan Le Fay. So I mean, it's
Oh,
worth
that
that
was
one
great.
season. So
Yes,
yeah,
that was great, and that's why I thought it would last, but
yeah.
it didn't. So
Yeah. So tell us about you kind of touched on your fantasy novel is your most recent project. Is that what you were saying? What's your most recent
yes.
release that you've had?
Well, depending on when this video or podcast comes out, the most recent release will be on June the 8th, and it's called Lessons Learned. So I'm
Okay.
trying to get that glare. Yeah, there we
Oh,
go.
there we
Is
go.
that the one that's like Pretty Woman?
Yes.
Okay.
So I always had this, I don't know, certain movies always just grab
Mhm.
my attention, and Pretty Woman was always one of them. And I always had this story line. One of the things I like about Pretty Woman is, you know, I'm not a big romantic comedy guy, but if you write it the right way, I will actually watch it. So
Mhm.
Pretty Woman, and then another one that's just great is Sliding Doors. I love Sliding
Mhm.
Doors. I think it's one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made. But Finding Love, like two different people from different areas of everywhere finding love where you shouldn't find love. And so for some reason, I don't know, that was just the biggest concept about that story. I know they go into a little more details with it, but he falls in love. Basically, Richard Gere falls in love with Julia Roberts' character, who's a prostitute. He's a businessman. And, that concept, just if I can write something like that, I always thought to myself, I think I would actually do it. And I actually did it. And it's just basically a similar concept, businessman. He's basically tired of doing all these relationships with these toxic women. He's just the latest incident that he has, he decides, I'm done. I just want nothing but pure and unattached sex. I'm done dealing with relationships. And so there's these exclusive prostitutes that only deal with married men. And so he finagles his way in there and finds out it's not what he thinks it is. They always talk about the sex is legendary and all that. And I hope I can talk about that on this
Oh yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Oh,
But yeah,
you'd be shocked at what Donna reads. So no, you continue to talk about whatever you want to read.
he's interested in this sex. It's always talked about through circles, and he finally
Mhm.
gets his way into this, these exclusive prostitutes, and he finds out that's a little more than what he thought it was, and he ends up falling for one of the women, one of the head mistress actually, and so it's really a tale like that, just finding love in the wrong place. And again, I will say that this one has a happier ending, but there is another book that this character is actually based on. The female character is actually based on too. You find out and wasn't so happy at the so you will find that with me in my writing that I just it's hard for me to give that happy go lucky, because I think it's a cliche that all
Yeah.
movies must be
Yeah.
happy, or all books must tales or whatever have to end happy. Some things just aren't happy. Some things they're bittersweet, but
Mhm.
not everything is just a happy ending.
Eric's the master of no happy endings.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I
No,
would like.
like every single one of your books I've read, and I've read a lot of your books, there's like not a single happy ending.
I
It's it.
respect that.
Yeah, I know. Well, what are you gonna do? So no, I was gonna
And just
say.
and just when you think that there's a little glimmer of a hope that he's going to give you something that will make you smile, he snatches it away from you.
I do enjoy that. I do really do enjoy doing that to people. So there's nothing better than getting a note, a DM from somebody just cussing you out because the ending didn't
Yes.
go the way they wanted. So, like you were saying. So, but no, I want to say the thing that I enjoy the most, that I'm most impressed with you, is just you tap every genre. You've got all these things, and it's no, like you said, you write it, then you figure it out. But the fact that you're finishing this almost romantic. I don't know if it's a comedy in a way, but romantic drama going into a fantasy. We're talking about science fiction. You've got zombie apocalypse. You've got these psychological thrillers that have science fiction elements, and it's very impressive, because some people will sit down and be like, I am a horror writer, so that's all I'm writing, or all I write is romance. I think it's so much, it just shows your depth as a writer, that you can jump around and
Exactly.
have something for everybody. So
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I pride myself with. When people approach my table at different events, first thing I ask them is, what are you into?
Mhm.
And if they give me a genre, I can probably put something close to that genre and give them something, of my readings. And a lot of times they'll read something, and the next thing you know, they enjoy it so much that they're looking for something else. And so it really, just like I watch TV and watch a lot of movies, I can't stick with the same genre. I have to go to different things. Sometimes I like psychological thrillers. Sometimes I like action. Sometimes I like sci-fi. Sometimes I want a little bit of drama. And so that personality trait about me basically filters over to the books as well, because sometimes I feel like writing about sci-fi. Sometimes I feel like writing about espionage.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like to write about, murder mystery. So I just do it.
Yeah,
And
it's
I think
great.
more people should lean into it and do stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and it's
I
great
agree.
not only for you as an author, but for readers too. I read your book, Virtual Insanity. What do you call that? A psychological thriller, I guess. And
Yeah.
I enjoy your writing, so that makes me kind of want to hop over to another one of your books, like maybe pick up your sci-fi book or your fantasy book or your romantic comedy book. So as a reader, you being a multi-genre author may open my eyes to another genre that I might enjoy.
Yeah, and the other thing
Mhm.
is you don't hide it. You don't
Yeah.
have 78 pen names. We all know it's you.
Yep.
And so we
Mhm.
can go, hey, here's our gateway drug. I read horror, I read your zombie book, and then all of a sudden I'm reading science fiction, and now I'm reading a romance, And I think that's how it should be. I just think what you're doing is great.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was one of the things one of the things my publisher told me when I first started doing the whole publishing thing is she had suggested that I kind of stick with the same genre so people know what they're
Hmm.
going to expect with me. And I
Mhm.
was like, that's just not my style. I may, you know, do a series or two or whatever, but sticking to the same genre is just not me. It's just, you know, I'm a moody person, so some moods make me want to write different. So,
Mhm.
I'm a moody author. You get what you
there you
get.
go. Yep.
Nice. Well, that's great. It's really impressive that you can do that. Um, so besides, of course, selling books, what are you looking forward to for coming back to Texas AuthorCon?
Um, really just meeting a lot of people. I mean, I met a lot of people, just the first go round. I had an amazing day, even with the book sales. I had a great day selling books and just meeting different people and just watching their flow. So every event I go on, I try to pick up some of the energy that other people are doing, some of the things that they're doing. And, there was this one guy last year that I was on the aisle. He was like kind of further down the aisle. And he was doing these police stories. I think he was a ex-police
Mhm.
that was actually doing police stories. Can't remember his name was. But
David.
I noticed that David, okay.
Mhm.
I noticed that every time that people were approaching him, he was already at attention. He was ready. He wasn't lounging around too much. And just that same type of energy is just something that I picked up from him. And, I started doing the same things on different events. And you notice the difference in how people approach you and how people talk to you, as opposed to just sitting in the chair, just waiting for somebody to come. So you pick up certain things from other people. And that right there is just one of the things that I just love the most, to just kind of learn. Like, I went from just having on my first event like a couple of book stands, and now I have a big rack
Mhm.
that I put up, and it's just the tablecloth, everything. I always want to add something new, and I think I finally have a good enough flow to where I can just kind of jump right in and just go at it. But yeah, it was a learning experience last year, so I think I'm a lot better. And I just really like meeting different people who do different genres and just kind of pick their brain on certain things.
Nice. Yeah, it's always great to get out and meet people and, you know,
But yeah.
yeah, I know, Eric. Yeah, I know. I hear you on that. I like these events because, there's people there that I already know. And doing these interviews allows me to get to know you. So now I won't feel awkward about going up to you and saying, "Hey, how's it going? Good to
Mm-hmm.
see you," stuff like that. So,
And you
yeah.
also meet a lot of people when you go to different events. You'll see the same people coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It becomes, hey, I remember you. How's things going? You know, you're building connections, you're building a network, and it's just one of those things you would never know. I think that somebody told me at last event I was at, they say a lot of authors aren't, they're very shy, you know, and so really we really get a lot of that out of us in the books. But if somebody asks you what this book is about, and you just freeze up, you know, because you don't have that confidence or that practice. You know, these are things that you learn with other people, just watching other people and how they perform, and then putting it into your pitch. I mean, I remember this one event. This guy asked me about a book. What's this book about? And I just was like, well, it's
let me read the
you know,
back.
yeah, like let me make sure I'm explaining this right, you know, and I do not like getting caught off guard like that. It's like if somebody asks a question about a book, I want to be able to say, oh, so this is what this book is about. And before it was just you weren't prepared. And so it's it's a process that you learn from, and you know, just seeing other people do it, it just really helps.
Yeah, it's all about learning. Learn how to do that. So yeah, great. It's been awesome to talk with you. We will have a link to his website and his Amazon author page in the description of the video. We'll also have a link to the Eventbrite so you can grab your tickets to the Texas Author Con and Book Festival. They're free tickets, but if you get a ticket in advance, you will be eligible for some prizes. And we will see you in July. It's been great talking with you.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed this and hope to talk again next year.
Awesome.
Take it easy.